Welcome students. In continuation to the role of microorganisms in the food industry, today in this episode we are going to learn about another group of microorganisms, and that is yeast, and how it participates in the food industry. Before going on to the food production, let us first understand what exactly is yeast. Yeast, if we look on to the microbial world, is a member of the microbial world, and along with mold, they belong to a kingdom which is the kingdom of fungi. Now fungi are Eumycota. There are about 800 species of yeast, and among them about 50 species are exploited in the food industry. In contrast to the mold, we have 80,000 species of the mold, and out of this 80,000, about 100 species are exploited in the food industry. Now this yeast very much resembles the bacteria because they are unicellular. But unlike bacteria, they are eukaryotic in nature. Coming on to the difference between the yeast and the mold, we will see that how morphologically as well as physiologically they differ from the molds, though they belong to the same kingdom of fungi. If we go on to the vegetative cells, we find that the yeast cells are unicellular in nature or in morphology, in comparison to the molds which show a mycelial growth. That means the molds have got the presence of thin thread-like structures, and these are called hyphae. Numerous hyphae condense together to form mycelium. In contrast to this, we find that in the case of yeast, though the mycelial nature is totally absent, but they may show presence of pseudomycelia, which is not a true mycelia. If we consider the growth rate or the generation time of the yeast cells, we find that it takes 1 to 2 hours to generate, in contrast to the molds which takes about 6 to 48 hours, and therefore whenever we cultivate a mold, we have to wait for at least 2 days in order to see the growth of the mold on the agar media. Comparing the metabolism, we find that the yeast are facultative aerobes or facultative anaerobes, while the molds are totally aerobic in nature. The lytic enzymes, that is the hydrolases, are very few in number in the case of yeast cells, while there are many such enzymes in the case of mold. Also, regarding the toxin production, we find that yeast produce no toxins, while in the case of molds, we have production of many toxins which are tagged or labeled as mycotoxins, and many mycotoxins are very harmful to the human health also. So these are the basic characteristics by which we can differentiate a yeast cell from a mold. Coming on to the morphology of the yeast cell. If we consider a single yeast cell, this is unicellular, globose, oval or ellipsoidal in its morphology. Now inside this ellipsoidal or oval shaped cell, there is a presence of a large central vacuole which is filled up with water. This vacuole has got a membrane which is known as the vacuole membrane. Along with this, since the yeast are eukaryotic in nature, they have presence of a nucleus which is very prominently seen. In addition to the nucleus, there is also presence of mitochondria, and because of the presence of mitochondria, their metabolism very much mimics the eukaryotic cell, because the mitochondria is totally absent in the case of prokaryotic cell, that is bacteria. In addition to all these things, we also find there are many vacuolar granules, there are many storage granules which can be made of glycogen, and also there are many lipid granules. Along with all these, we also find a prominent cell membrane which is covering the whole cell of the yeast, which is unicellular. Now these yeast cells, there are few members of these yeast cell. For example, in Candida, we find that they are joined with one another. As a result, they form a beaded chain-like structure. Though it is not a thread, not a chain, this resembles a thread-like structure, and therefore we call it a pseudomycelium, which is not a true mycelium but a false mycelium. Coming on to the reproduction of the yeast cells. Now, yeast cells reproduce by means of the asexual reproduction, which is known as budding. Now, budding is a process, here you can see, where we find a small bud appears along with the mother cell, and when this bud gets detached from the mother cell, it matures, become a adult unicellular yeast cell. Now, in the case of budding, we find that numerous buds are being formed outside the yeast cell. That means a single bud is not formed. There are numerous buds which are formed on the yeast cell, and when the bud appears, there is a formation of a scar which is known as the bud scar. Now, this budding is a common feature of reproduction in the case of Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which is a common genera of yeast cell. However, there is another mode of reproduction which is a common feature of another type of yeast cell, which is known as the fission yeast. In the case of fission yeast, they do not reproduce by means of budding, rather they go into the process of fission. That means they divide into two. Here you can see in the case of Schizosaccharomyces pombe, which is called the fission yeast, a single unicellular yeast gets elongated or it matures, and now after maturation and after duplication of the cell organelles along with the nucleus, they get a fissure. A partition appears between the two cells. Now, they are not two cells, they are basically a single cell. A partition appears between a cell, and this partition now gets separated, and the two yeast cells are now divided, or they are being separated, and now they appear as two daughter cells. The nucleus, here you can see the electron micrograph shows that how prominently the two nucleus are being separated, and with the appearance of a partition, the two cells get separated by the means of fission, and now this is known as a fission yeast, which is a common or characteristic feature of Schizosaccharomyces pombe. Now, coming on to the life cycle. Does it mean that the yeast cells are always haploid, or does it mean that the yeast cells are always diploid? Let us see. Whenever there is a scarcity of food, the haploid cells of yeast, they are reduced in number and finally they disappear. Then how do they survive? At that very moment, the diploid cells of the yeast cells undergo the process of sporulation, and they produce more number of diploid cells, and when the conditions again reappear, they undergo the process of meiosis, and again there is a formation of the haploid cells. Now, let us see how this life cycle goes on in the case of yeast cells. In yeast cells, we basically find two different types of haploid cells. One is called the A cell and the other one is called the alpha cell. Now, this A and the alpha cell are different because it has been seen that they secrete two different type of chemicals which are called pheromones. Now, because of the secretion of the pheromones, the A cell attracts the alpha cell, and as a result, they combine together or they undergo the process of mating. So, when the A cell and the alpha cell undergoes the process of mating, there is a formation of a cell which is now a diploid cell. That means the two N nucleus, that means haploid was having a N nucleus, the two N nucleus combine together, and now we have formation of a nucleus which is 2N in nature or diploid in nature. This diploid cell can undergo the process of sporulation, and there may be production of more number of diploid cell, because I told you during the process or during the conditions of scarcity, the haploid cells do not survive, rather the diploid cells only survive. When the conditions are favorable, this diploid cell undergoes the process of meiosis, and we have the production of haploid number of cells. So, in this way, the life cycle of yeast is being maintained, and in this way, the haploid and the diploid number of yeast cells are maintained in the nature. Now, let us come or understand the metabolism of the yeast cell, because we know that the specific metabolic activity is present in each of the microorganism, and that is why they are being exploited in the food industry for the manufacture of different fermented food items. The yeast cells basically show two types of metabolic activities. One is called respiration and the other one is called the fermentation. Now, this respiration is an aerobic process. That means it takes place in the presence of the oxygen. We find that The sugar which is present in the media is taken up by the yeast cell, which is converted to glucose 6-phosphate, and after being converted to pyruvate, it enters the citric acid cycle inside the mitochondria, where we also find the oxidative phosphorylation takes place in the presence of the oxygen, and ultimately the carbon dioxide is being produced and with the liberation of ATP. That means it is an energy generating process. And after that, the carbon dioxide is being liberated out of the yeast cell. So this is a metabolic pathway which is known as the aerobic respiration. Now in the case of anaerobic condition, what happens is the sugar which is present in the media is transported inside the yeast cell, gets converted to glucose 6-phosphate, and then this glucose 6-phosphate gets converted to triose phosphate, which can be transported out of the cell as glycerol, or the triose phosphate can be further converted to pyruvate. Now this pyruvate in this case do not enter the mitochondria because it is an anaerobic process. Okay, so the oxygen is not there. In that case, the pyruvate gets converted to ethanol and oxaloacetic acid. The ethanol and carbon dioxide which is formed from the pyruvate may be transported out of the cell. So in this case, the yeast cell is producing ethanol along with the carbon dioxide. While the oxaloacetic acid can be converted to succinate, and this succinate or the succinic acid can also be transported out of the cell. So the products that are formed in the anaerobic conditions is not at all the same what is formed during the aerobic conditions. The yeast cells during the conversion of glucose 6-phosphate to glycerophosphate, we can find that there may be production of histidine, there may be production of phenylalanine, tyrosine and tryptophan. When the pyruvate is being formed from glucose 6-phosphate, this pyruvate and acetyl-CoA may also act as the precursor for the synthesis of alanine, valine, leucine, etc. The acetyl-CoA now gets converted to alpha-ketoglutarate and then to oxaloacetate, and during this process we find that there is production of numerous amino acids like glutamic acid, glutamine, arginine, proline, aspartic acid, asparagine, threonine, methionine and lysine. Now lysine is one of the essential amino acids which can only be produced by the microbial cells and it cannot be produced by the cells of the human body. Now let us understand the types or the different types of the yeast cells that are being used in the food industry. So we say the types and the uses of the yeast in the food production. The first type of yeast that is known to us is baker's yeast. Baker's yeast means this yeast is a friend of a baker, and the scientific name of this baker's yeast is Saccharomyces cerevisiae. There are basically three different types of baker's yeast. Number one is active dry yeast, which is the grains of the live dried yeast cells along with the leavening powder. So this is the yeast which is mainly used by the bakers in order to manufacture bread and other bakery items. There is another type of yeast which is called the inactive dry yeast, which are the grains of the dead yeast cells without the leavening powder. That means they cannot bring about the fluffiness in the dough and therefore the bakery product cannot be formed with this type of yeast. However, there is another type of yeast which is called the instant dry yeast, which are the fine particles, and therefore since they are instant, they can be used instantaneously without the process of rehydration. That means they have got enough moisture content and they can be immediately or instantly used by the bakers. Here you can see the picture of a compressed fresh yeast. That means this does not need the process of rehydration. So since it is a baker's yeast, the first important food product which is formed with this yeast is the bread. When the dough is made, it looks like this in the container. When the yeast is added to this dough, it becomes lighter or it rises up because of the fermentation process or because of the production of the carbon dioxide inside this dough. And after this, dough goes in for the baking and we have the production of the bread. Now, if we go to the history or if we recall back our history, we find that the Egyptian sculpture is there which shows the making of the bread. Now, Egyptian civilization, they knew that if we make a dough and leave it for some time, the naturally occurring yeast are there which are going to ferment it, and therefore we could have a food item which is a bread. Now this literature also shows that during the pyramid manufacture, the workers were given bread as a source of earning also. Coming to the brewer's yeast, we find that Saccharomyces euverum and Saccharomyces pastorianus, these two are known for the production of the lager beer. That means they are not able to resist the high temperature, and therefore they bring about the fermentation process at the bottom of the wooden barrel where the brewing process is going on. However, the Saccharomyces cerevisiae brings about the formation of the ale beer because they are the one who could resist a high temperature, and they form the beer which is called the ale beer, or they are called the top fermenters because they are present at the top of the brewing fermentation. Here also you can see the picture where the brewing has been done in the earlier stages. So in the history also we recollect that there are many instances where the brewing with the yeast were done. And we have a production of a product which is called the beer. If we look at the typical changes that is taking place during the fermentation of the beer, we will observe that the population of the yeast cell, that is Saccharomyces cerevisiae, keeps on rising, and along with rising population, the concentration of the ethanol also keeps on rising because the Saccharomyces cerevisiae converts the sugar into alcohol and carbon dioxide. However, in that case, since the sugar is being fermented, we find that the amount of the fermentable sugar goes down. This shows that the alcohol so produced is the one which is responsible to bring out the product. Another type of yeast known to us is nutritional brewer's yeast. Now, nutritional brewer's yeast is nothing but Saccharomyces cerevisiae, the inactive yeast, where we find the dead yeast cells are there without any leavening powder. That means they cannot bring about the process of baking, or they cannot make the dough lighter and fluffer. And therefore, as a result of this, these cells are the one which are obtained after the brewing process is over. They are the leftover cells, but since they are the excellent source of B vitamin, calcium, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, copper, ferrous, zinc, manganese and chromium. All these can be used for the medicinal purpose, and therefore these dead yeast cells which are there after the brewing process is over can be consumed. It is also a good source of proteins, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, minerals and essential amino acids like lysine. And therefore, these yeast are also used for the treatment of diabetes, for the regulation of the insulin levels, and can be used in patients who have got a loss of appetite, who are having a chronic ache, or who are suffering from an acute diarrhea. Another category of yeast is the wine yeast. As the name goes on, these yeast variety are used for the production of the wine. Now, all these species of Saccharomyces, beginning from Saccharomyces cerevisiae to Saccharomyces euverum, oviformis, Carlsbergensis, all these species of Saccharomyces are used for the production of wine. Then what are the factors which are responsible for the different colors of the wine? The different factors on which the color of the wine depend on is the geographical area where the wine production is going on, or where exactly the fermentation is going on. Also the climate, the type of grapes that are being used as a raw material, the desirable organoleptic quality of the product also decides that which strain of Saccharomyces has to be used for the wine production. The organoleptic quality of the wine means the taste of the wine, the aroma of the wine, the color of the wine, and the presence of tannin and the glycerol that is there in the wine. So all this gives a particular taste, aroma and the color to the wine, and that depends upon the type of Saccharomyces that will be used for the wine production. Going on to another variety of the yeast, and this is called the distiller's yeast. Now why distillers? Because this type of yeast is used for the manufacture of many distilled products. Now distilled products, here I mean the products like brandy, the products like rum, whiskey, tequila. So all these are the distilled products, and therefore the yeast referred here is called the distiller's yeast. Now there are certain conditions, there are certain limitations or characteristic features which are present in this yeast cells. We call them the prerequisites for the production of the fine quality distillation products. Now what are these characteristic features? Number one is these yeast should produce low amount of foam. If more foaming is there, the distilled product will not be a fine quality product. Then they should have a high stress tolerance. They should be able to give you a high amount of alcohol. Also, the controlled amount of ethyl esters, aldehydes, fatty acids and higher alcohol production should be there. There should not be more amount of higher alcohols or ethyl ester production. Otherwise, this will not give you a good taste to the distilled product. These yeasts should also be able to ferment various substrates such as the corn, barley, wheat, potato, so that the different types of raw material could be used by the industry. Also, they should be fast fermenters with high production level, and they should be able to tolerate high temperature and high osmotic pressure. So these are the characteristic feature which is being found in the distiller's yeast, and therefore they are categorized as the distiller's yeast only, and they cannot be the baker's yeast. Coming on to the other variety of the yeast, which is called the probiotic yeast. Now yeast, as I told you, contains numerous amino acids, numerous vitamins, along with it many essential amino acids which cannot be manufactured by the cells of the human body. Therefore, we have to depend upon this, and as a result of all these nutritional values, we can consume the yeast as the single cell proteins, and therefore they are referred to as the probiotic yeast. Now these probiotic yeast mainly that is being used in the human race is Saccharomyces cerevisiae and Saccharomyces boulardii. Now they have the ability to survive through the gastrointestinal tract, where we have presence of numerous other microbes. In the gastrointestinal tract, we have the normal microbiota. Along with that, we have the existence of many pathogens, and these pathogens should be counteracted. And Saccharomyces cerevisiae and Saccharomyces boulardii has the capacity to counteract with these pathogens which are present in the gastrointestinal tracts. These pathogens can be Escherichia coli, they can be Shigella, or they can be Salmonella, which bring about the different types of diarrheal diseases. Coming on to the last type of the yeast, we call it the Torula yeast. Now this Torula yeast basically refers to a genus which is Candida utilis. Candida utilis can be used as a substitute for meat and a food additive in many processed food. In many countries, it is also used as spice, or it can be used as a seasoning agent. It is also used in many sauce, soups, etc. because this contains a heavy amount of essential amino acids along with the vitamin B. Because of this, the Torula yeast is consumed by the human race. So all these shows that the yeast plays a very vital role in the food industry. We start our morning breakfast with a piece of bread without thinking that if the yeast would not have existed, we would not have got that piece of bread. So we should be thankful to the microbes who are giving so many food that we are relying upon. Thank you.